Good evening and welcome to the Bellefleur Tire Shop Grand Falls Rapids postgame show. A bit of a quiet night tonight as the Rapids end up dropping this game 5-1 to the Miramichi Timberwolves in what was a very physical, once like we projected, a very high-scoring affair as well. And something I'm sure that Rapids fans here in attendance tonight will not soon forget. It was just, what better words there to say than it was just a brutal game. Started good from the get-go. We'll go through a lot of the positives here, and we'll go through some of the things that I noticed as well that could need a little bit of work. So we'll start from the get-go. Braden Campbell gets his 10th of the season, puts the Rapids up 1-0 in the first period, and that's something that the energy was there from the get-go. They were right on it and ready to go, ready to play from that first minute of puck drop. They ended up playing extremely well through that first stretch. It's the second period where they got into trouble. So much so, actually, that they ended up having 23 shots in the first period. That's something that... again, is not rare, but it's it just shows you how much they were dominating in that first period. And luckily, or unfortunately rather, they wouldn't keep that dominance up for much longer. So they would go into the first intermission with a 1-0 lead. 40 seconds into the second period, Easton Schlender, excuse me for the mispronunciation. Easton Schlender gets the Timberwolves on the board. It ties this game up 40 seconds. A little bit later on, they would take the lead thanks to Thatcher Hughes. Then Cale McDonald would add on to the lead, and Schlender would get another goal to make it 4 unanswered goals for the Timberwolves in the second period. And then from there, the Miramichi just found their footing. It was simple as that. Grand Falls, they played well in the first period, and they were just unable to stop the unstoppable force, I suppose, in this game. That was the Miramichi Timberwolves, and that's really just what happened here. That really that made them lose this game. Was a couple of minutes once again where they lost control and they weren't able to get it back. It would only escalate worse from there. Chaos ensues. Brody Paré gets called for boarding. He gets a 2 and a 10 as well. Him and Jacob Lafontaine for blows to the head, so for head contact. 2 and a 10, which leads to another goal for the Timberwolves rather, from the captain Elliot Robert on their side. And again, just one that you are not super thrilled with seeing, and I can sense a lot of frustration rather, that was from the fans here tonight as well. So a short time after that, tensions would flare up. Jack Brown and Lorenzo Tita get into a little bit of some rough stuff there. And that's where the end of the game really starts to come in, is there was a lot of physicality towards that end. And what more can you say? It was a rivalry game that you were expecting some bad blood here, and bad blood's exactly what you got. So this is a game that, the Rapids have 10 games left after this. The Campbellton Tigers are in town on Sunday afternoon. Yes, I was going to open up this show with a bit of a funny line saying, you hit a wolf over the head and apparently all you're going to get is a big bite out of the sword. Reference, obviously, to that double-edged sword that I was talking about earlier. Now, unfortunately, the Rapids were not able to get a couple of points over Miramichi tonight, but there is still an opportunity for West Kent to win the game, and actually the unofficial final from Yarmouth tonight, 10-3 for the West Kent Steamers. So there is a little bit of a plus side to that. Now, the other side of the double-edged sword, not quite dulled up yet. The Campbellton Tigers can roll into Miramichi and get a couple of points tomorrow. Anything is possible. But at this stage, it would have been nice to see the Rapids get a win tonight. Unfortunate that they couldn't come away with one. But there were some good moments in this game, and I really want to talk about those and highlight some of the great things that they did as opposed to the not-so-great things. We often get caught up in the negative and what this team doesn't do well, but we don't talk often enough about what they did do well tonight. And I want to applaud 3 things that they did very extremely well. Up until I'd say the late stages of the second period, early third, they were forechecking fantastically. That's something that you want to always do. Make sure that you are hemming them into their zone, and for a good chunk of that game, that's exactly what they were doing. They were keeping Miramichi at bay. Up until those goals were scored, they were doing a great job at that. They struck first, and that's something we talked about for a lot of this season, was that they weren't striking first enough. That, they didn't do a good enough job at making sure that first goal didn't come from the opposing team. And tonight they did that. They did that extremely well. They held them off at least for the first 10 minutes of the game, which was fantastic. This is the second game in a row now where they've held an opponent off the score sheet for 10 minutes. And usually people would say, oh, that's nothing to applaud about. But with this team, that's a huge step. Because time and time again, we've seen this season, as you all know, that this team, within the first minute to 5 minutes of the game, they are used to letting in those first goals, and it ends up being the momentum killer for that majority of those games. However, this game was it was well played. I have to give full credit to Miramichi. It was well played by the Timberwolves. They came out, they saw the weakness in the first period, and they completely dissected what they had to do better, and that's just how it went. Overall, wasn't a bad game. They just got beat. There was a couple of minutes there where they took their foot off the gas, and they got beat from there. It was not, by any stretch of the imagination, a bad game played by the Grand Falls Rapids. Now, with that said, the Campbellton Tigers are coming to town on Sunday afternoon, after facing off against the Miramichi Timberwolves Saturday night. I am all mixed up today. I apologize. Tomorrow night, they're facing off against the Miramichi Timberwolves in Miramichi, and then they are on the second half of their back-to-back in Grand Falls. So now, this is an opportunity as well for Campbellton to try and catch up to Miramichi, but ultimately, you're not in this game to make friends at this point in the season. You're trying to spoil it for everybody. Grand Falls wants to come back, and they want to play as hard as they possibly can, preventing Campbellton from getting those points and, getting any sort of momentum rolling, to be honest with you. Now, with that said, I think Sunday's game is not going to be quite as relaxed. It's going to be a little bit more laid back, hence, or less of what we saw tonight. But there's also going to be a lot of tensions, I would say high tensions flaring there as well. So you're going to want to make sure that you are either at that game, or if you're not able to make it, tune into Flow Hockey. Devin Judge has got the call for that game. It's going to be a really fun one. It always is when Campbellton's in town, and it's one that you're, again, not going to want to miss. Get your tickets. Get that subscription to Hockey TV if you haven't already, and we will see you on Sunday afternoon when the Grand Falls Rapids take on the Campbellton Tigers for one of the last times this season. But until then, this has been Tyler Rains for the Bellefleur Tire Shop Grand Falls Rapids post-game show. If you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button, hit the little bell notification for all future content coming into the rest of the season and the off-season. There's going to be a lot of it, and so much fun surprises ready to go.